Welcome back to the channel, you curd nerds. Here we are for another mock checkride. What is that? What is that? There's more! There's more of them! Why is there so many? Okay. I've heard the requests. I've read the comments. I've heard the requests. So here you have it. A commercial mock checkride. Now, a lot of people think commercial is super complicated and you got to know the regs, and you pretty much have to have a degree in aviation law to get through a commercial checkride. And here's the thing, no you don't. All right, we broke down this commercial checkride super simple. I've actually been working with Tom for like a year at this point, doing tutoring lessons, working him through his commercial training, and we really broke down the regs in the simplest, easiest way possible. So we cover systems at commercial level knowledge, we cover regs at commercial level knowledge, and we talk about route planning for a fairly complex route that his DPE or his instructor that's also a DPE told him to plan. So we covered a lot. There's a lot of detail, and I really hope that this helps all y'all out through everybody who's been asking for a commercial mock checkride. And YouTube's got that new hype points feature. So if you got hype points, spend them. They're down there, right? It really helps out these small creators. If you don't like the ads, obviously there are options to get rid of the ads, but I really do appreciate all y'all watching. I really hope that this helps y'all through your commercial ratings, and let me know if I made any mistakes or if you've got any questions down in the comments. Maybe we'll make some videos about them. But without further ado, let's roll the mock checkride. Now that I hit those buttons, I just want to ask, hey, are you okay with us recording this mock checkride tutoring session, whatever you want to call it, for content creation, whether it be on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, etc.?
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. So just to give some context, we were talking a little bit before this. So just to give some context, I'm going to pull up the email that, Tom here sent me. He was supposed to go up and do a, kind of a mock checkride with a CFI DPE. And I'm just going to go over the little email you sent me. It says you and a friend are planning to depart KAVL mid-morning in a Cessna 210. Your first stop is going to be Concord or JQF. Pick up two more friends, then continue on to Beaufort or MRH, Mike Romeo Hotel. One of your friends has arranged for 200 pounds of oysters to be delivered to the FBO at MRH at noon. So, the implication is that you need to be there at noon. I'm assuming the FBO is not going to hold on to this shrimp for you. You know what I mean?
Oysters.
And then you're going to go all the way back from AVL, or all the way back to AVL, the initial point of departure, for the much anticipated, quote, oyster party that starts at 6. So your plan is to be back to AVL by 3:30. You've got a friend coming with you from AVL that's 185 pounds. You've got two friends from JQF that's 225 and 205. Use real world weather and NOTAMs for the time and date of the flight. So we're planning this based on a couple days ago's weather. I don't have any of that weather right here with me, and it's kind of a pain to dig that stuff up. So talk me through what your plan was. I know you said you made a couple deviations from this already.
Well, what happened was when you carry all those passengers plus the 200 pounds of oysters from Beaufort, you're above the structural minimum zero fuel weight.
Okay. So, and
yeah, this isn't a 182 or 172. So they have the minimum structural zero fuel weight that I would be above because the cargo in the fuselage would be too high versus the zero fuel weight. And so you could have structural issues.
Yeah, and that's one thing that a lot of students kind of miss, right? Because 172, 182. I mean, even my airplane, doesn't have a maximum zero fuel weight. If it's under the maximum takeoff weight, fucking send it. Even if I'm only going to be able to take 10 gallons of gas, let's make 5 fuel stops on the way back, is what a lot of students might have made the mistake. But you went and you're just like, well, why am I taking somebody on this stupid round robin trip?
Right.
Like, why, if they're going to be at AVL, like, why
Yeah,
not just leave them at AVL?
correct. And
Awesome.
that was the biggest thing because fuel's important to me. So I would be topped off with 89 gallons leaving Asheville, KAVL. Go to Concord, pick up the two other guys. One's I think 205 and one's 225, and then fly to Buford, fuel back up with 89 gallons of fuel because I can, and it's safe to do that because who knows? The weather in the mountains gets a little tricky. If I have to divert somewhere, I have to divert for a little while and wait on weather. And I've been make it back in plenty of time to hit the 3:30 deadline to get back to ABL. And that was my go decision. It would be no go if my friend said, "Well, I gotta go." Well, then we're not going, kind of
Yeah.
thing. So
Well, awesome, awesome. So, since we are talking about this in like the commercial aspect, right?
mhm.
You're planning for your commercial rating, so that's kind of why we've got this little bit more of a complicated plan, a little bit more of a complicated aircraft. Um, is this flight legal? Let's say you've got a commercial certificate and you're doing this. Is this legal? And why do you say so? Why do you say it's not?
Well, it depends on if they're going to pay me or not. I don't. There
Okay.
was nothing in the scenario saying that I was getting paid. So if I'm not getting paid, it is legal. Um, if they're paying me, it would be geez, what is it? A private carriage. Um, and I'm not holding out. So I should be okay, with getting paid by the hour to fly them. I could go do it under Part 91 and then just split the costs with everybody, the fuel, any oil usage, any ramp fees, and so on and so forth, fuels, expenses, and stuff like that. Um,
Okay. So,
and,
oh, go ahead.
and I'm not really, I mean, it's so when you look at commercial, the common carriage, private carriage, and the couple of the other scenarios that they go through, it gets a little pretty deep, you
Mhm.
know, with all that. So
So let's say this oyster party, right? I mean, when I hear oyster party, 200 pounds of oysters, I mean, I'm under the impression that somebody's buying tickets. Like, I got some pretty cool buddies. I got some pretty nice buddies, but I don't think anybody's spending $200 on oysters to host a party without some kind of donation system, without some kind of ticket, without some kind of charge being, administered to afford this. If
right,
that's the case, let's say, your buddy that arranged for these oysters is charging people $5 a head. Does that change your ability to transport these people and products?
that's a great question. No, because he doesn't have operational control, I would think, of the aircraft. I do. And so he's not like doing it as a like an event type strategy. So I would think it wouldn't rub up against what I'm doing.
Okay,
I mean, I
so
might,
can you, if you're operating under, let's say, Part 91, right? You're operating under commercial or you're operating under private pilot privileges,
correct.
effectively, right?
Mhm.
Um, because he's not the owner of the aircraft, you are.
Correct. I am. Yes.
So, under your private pilot privileges, can you do flights in the furtherance of a business?
I would have to say no.
So, I guess let me rephrase that. Can you do flights in the furtherance of a business and be compensated for it?
Hmm. Wow. Further of a business and be compensated for it.
Because that's
Uh,
kind of the limiting factor, right?
yeah, that would be. I would say no because he's doing it as a business.
Exactly. So, I feel like that's a lot of that's kind of where this DPE was going was,
Okay.
do you have the whereabout to ask these questions
Oh, of the
of
potential
the
client. I,
Exactly. Do you have the whereabouts to ensure that you know what to ask your buddy to be like, "Hey, am I possibly breaking a law right here
right,
without knowing about it?"
right.
Right?
Yeah,
Because I mean, I've had buddies who's like, "Hey, we're gonna go here and we're gonna pick something up." It's like, okay, why are we picking something up? They're like,
right,
"Oh, well, just cause." I'm like, that sounds something smells fishy over here, and I'm not trying to make an oyster joke.
right. Yeah, I mean that's great. I mean, and that's the thing that the gray area piece, because you don't really get that information in the FAR, the regs, or anything like that. It's really broad, I would think.
Well, it's the regs don't tell you to go and ask the questions, right? And
Right,
sure, let's say something bad happens, and the FAA starts barking down somebody's door, the NTSB starts barking up somebody's, tree. Is it? Because remember, it's up to the pilot and command to determine on whether or not an aircraft, a flight is legal and safe, right?
right,
So you
right,
saying, "Oh, to the best of my knowledge, everything was on the up and up." Come on, that's
right,
like me. Like let's make a more ridiculous scenario. That would be like me going to the drug enforcement agency saying, "I didn't know they loaded my plane with a bunch of cocaine. I was just told to move these car seats from point A to point B. I
right.
didn't know there was cocaine in the car seat." Like, come on,
Oh gosh,
right?
I
I know
understand.
that's a little bit more ridiculous. Obviously, if you're working for like UPS or something like that, they have operational control, but it's still up to the pilot. If they're doing their walk around and they see something shady going on, it's still their responsibility. Now that we're
Right,
down at like the Cessna 210 level, it's a little bit smaller. Of course, a 777 getting loaded with a bunch of bins, it's not
right,
reasonable for the pilot to go and search every bin. But if it's
right,
your airplane and you've got a buddy saying, "Hey, we're going to be picking up this cargo," it is reasonable to say, "Hey, you should have asked those questions."
right, right. Yeah, I understand.
So it's I know it can kind of seem like gray area, but let's just put it in the FAA very often um, looks at a point of a reasonable human being, right? Would a reasonable person with your training and experience find this reasonable?
Right, I understand.
Um, so those are the questions I would definitely ask. I do like that you said, "Hey, buddy, you're not coming." Like you
Right.
recognize the limitations of your airplane. Let's talk a little bit about your route. Did you plan VFR, IFR? Based on the altitudes you picked, it seemed like it was going to be VFR.
Yes, because I mean everything commercial is like fly VFR, and that's basically the commercial side of the piece is that everything's VFR, especially with the check ride. Um,
Hmm.
would I rather fly IFR? Sure, I'd rather fly IFR, which I'm IFR rated. But what I also did was I used ForeFlight to get away from the manual aspect because I'm, at that level now, and also taking a look at the options of the routes that ForeFlight gives you
Hmm.
and seeing, how it's laid out there. Um, so that's why the route is kind of set up the way it is. And I also have my pilotage points in there too. Um, yeah,
Yeah, so I pulled it up on Sky Vector. Given the GPS waypoints and stuff, it's kind of hard for me to put those into Sky Vector.
right.
But I mean, this is effectively the route. You're going Asheville,
And
Solo to uh, was it
sugar,
Bradford? Oh no, Concord, and then
correct,
Concord. You're picking up your buddies and going to MRH, and from MRH all the way back to Asheville.
correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Um, go ahead.
and you see that you got a Charlotte Bravo airspace right there above Concord.
Hmm.
So that's why I took a route from KABL to Sugarloaf VOR to BZM VOR, and then I figured they're probably going to vector me around anyways, just to uh, because of the Class Bravo airspace. So as you
Okay.
can
And what
see,
was the identifier of the Sugarloaf VOR again?
Sierra Uniform Golf.
Sierra Uniform Golf.
And
There
then
it is.
Bravo Zulu Mike is your BZM, Barrett's Mountain VOR.
Okay.
And then I just set up some pilotage points, like, after I cross BZM, I'm going to turn right. I haven't looked at the heading, but it's probably a heading of 100. But I mean, I got Statesville there. Statesville's a little town. That's a good pilotage point. And then I got railroads. And then I figured they're probably going to, in a waypoint of Pigeti. And they're going to vector me around they'll be in full contact with me, ATC. I always pick up flight following, so I'll pick up flight following with Asheville. So yeah, that's why you see all of those, longitude and latitude.
Yeah. No, and I mean that's fine. That's fine. Did the DPE specifically state like, hey, let's keep this VFR plan?
No, he did not state that. But I just figured it probably was going to be all VFR.
I mean, with a route like this, I would have I would have planned it IFR. Even if there is VFR weather planned, I probably would have done an IFR planning because you're trying to get. You're not trying to do a VFR only commercial pilot certificate, right? You're trying to get a commercial pilot certificate that also includes your IFR privileges.
Okay.
Plus,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a route that takes you pretty much right there.
Correct. Yeah, there is.
And, there's even a route that'll pretty much take you all the way out to the other one.
Yeah.
My personal preference would have done to plan it IFR. I see why you did it VFR. Because, like, hey, commercial brings us back into the VFR world. We're doing all these VFR maneuvers and whatnot. Commercial is more looking at your decision making. It's less, oh, this is a VFR only ride. Oh, this is a IFR only ride. It's kind of bringing it all back together. What is your decision? What is your choice?
Right.
Right. And
Right.
if we're going to be, circumnavigating Bravo and whatnot, like I would rather be on an IFR flight plan that's going to very easily get me into and out of Bravo, or IFR flight plan that's going to get me in and out of Bravo easily, instead of trying to duck under all these different shelves and hope that they're going to give me a VFR clear, or hope that they're going to give me a VFR clearance through the Bravo. Because if the Bravo's busy, they can tell me pound sand.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. If I'm on an IFR flight plan, I mean, there's exactly.
Yeah. I didn't know I really had a choice. It didn't seem like that on the commercial side because everything was VFR. So that's good to know, though.
Yeah, your maneuvers are all VFR.
Right.
Right. If the DPE wants VFR cross country procedures, it's very easy for them to take you off your plan. Right. Be like, oh, we lost communications, something. It's very easy to build a scenario to get you out of the IFR environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. But what we're looking for is, like, let's say somebody did approach you at the airport saying like, hey, I need you to do this commercial flight for me. I need you to get me from point A to point B, point C with some cargo, blah, blah, blah. What's your planning behind it?
Yeah. I mean, and that's the first question is it a business? It's a cargo I'm picking up for business related. And if so, so on and so forth, like you said.
Yep. But it wasn't a bad VFR flight plan. You got to you get plenty decent altitude. 7,500 feet was the plan. Let me see if I've got it kicking around here somewhere. I did have some notes on it. I even wrote in like a missing 185-pound friend. But we already talked about that. You had that's your intention. You had your top of climbs, top of descents. Again, these are 4-flight generated. Because at this point, again, like what are we bothering? The one thing I did see that might be a point of contention was the fact that you split the cargo. at the end.
Right.
Would it have been possible to not split it? Because if somebody's ordering 100 pounds of oyster, usually it's going to be in like some kind of crate.
Right.
Um,
Um, because the maximum weight that I can actually put in the rear cargo area is like 100 and something pounds. Let's see, in the aft cargo, it's 120 pounds in the aft cargo.
okay, so it was necessary to split the cargo, and that's probably another limitation that they recognize from the Cessna 210. Like, are they able to recognize that they can't just shove 200 pounds in the cargo?
Correct. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So solid decision making when it came to getting rid of the friend that wanted to come with, just as kind of a joyride. Solid decision splitting the cargo. I wouldn't have done it VFR. I would have done it IFR, especially circumnavigating a big old Bravo airspace like that. It just
Yeah.
it would just
Does.
make it less work for you is really what it is.
Correct. Yeah. Because they'll clear me right through it, most likely.
And even if they don't clear you right through it, I mean, how much fuel were you going to burn for this route? Let's see where we're at. Flight fuel, 32 gallons out of the 80 that you planned for. So it's about half your gas.
Mm-hmm.
You still got, what was the route or what was the time? Extra fuel, landing weight. I had 2 hours, so you still had another 2 hours of fuel. So I wouldn't say that you're obviously being cautious with fuel, having extra fuel isn't ever a bad thing. Just keep in mind that, I mean, you're not actually going commercial. You're just doing this to kind of make yourself better. Right? If I remember
Right.
correctly.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
What I would say is, I like your plan. You're cautious on fuel. You're more cautious than me, but it might be a matter of experience, or just you'd rather make that extra fuel stop. What are we doing? There we go.
Yeah, because basically, I'm just picking up fuel in Beaufort while I'm getting
Mhm.
the oysters. So I mean, it's like just top me off while I'm here.
Yeah, yeah, and that makes complete sense. Um, I didn't see any NOTAMs that would give you any issue. The only NOTAM I saw was that there was a departure procedure out of one of these airports that you need RNAV because the VOR is out of service. I think there might have been
That's probably Sugarloaf. Sugarloaf.
Sid out of Concord because the Sugarloaf VOR is out of service. So there wasn't really any VORs that I would have been too concerned about, or not VORs, any NOTAMs that I would have been too concerned about. I know when I checked the weather, I was thinking that we were planning this off of today's weather. I was a little nervous about the VFR only because there's a lot of bad weather going on today. But if this was based on stuff from days ago,
Yeah, it's probably on the East Coast. The weather on the East Coast we got to worry about because you got all those tropical storms pushing up through there.
Yeah, I mean, right now at AVL,
Oh,
it
yeah.
did get a little bit better.
Well,
MRH scattered at 1700. Oh yeah, it did get a little bit better.
Yeah.
You got a 30% probability of thunderstorms at 21 to 0200 Zulu.
Right.
So I mean, that would be like kind of on your way back. There's some probability of thunderstorms. So nothing too concerning there. Let's talk about your airplane though. So it's a Cessna 210 retractable gear, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Complex.
All right. So talk me through that aircraft's gear system.
The aircraft's gear system, well, it's hydraulic. And it's interesting because just diving into it, the short time I've had it, the brake lines go through the system, so it goes through the gearbox blocks on it. It, I don't know how deep you want to go into it. to the
I mean,
system. I mean, it's a hydraulic system. Um, it does have a gear horn on it, which is basically type certified. So I have to have the gear horn working properly, as do the stall horn, which I ran into that issue the other day with the stall horn. But yeah, I don't have the doors on it anymore. I think they call it the Valley modification, where they take the gear doors off of it. Just because you have your maximum gear door speed was less than actually the maximum, not, well, it's in miles per hour, but I convert it to knots. So the maximum gear speed's 140 on it, but the gear doors would have been like 120 on it, if I remember correctly. So they got rid of the gear doors because I guess a lot of the technicians were having a hard time with it, calibrating them properly. But it's a
yeah,
hard
they're a pain to sequence.
yeah, and it's really, to me, it's just sequencing them, Yeah, they're a pain, you know, but yeah, it's a hydraulic system. Every 25 hours, I make sure I have enough hydraulic fluid in the system. And you just got to maintain it a little more and keep your eye on it, and that's about it. But I've had no issues with it.
Okay. So how does the airplane know that the gear is down or up?
Um, it has I'm sure it has a little switch. So when the gear goes down, it has a little relay in there that the gear is locked and down. I have one green light, on the dash for that. And when the gear is up, I'm sure there's another little relay switch that says the gear is up, and I have a yellow light that shows me that. But I verify every time I put the gears down. I verify 2 or 3 times on the gears down. And then when the gear comes up, I make sure I verify 2 or 3 times that the gear is up, because you just don't know.
Well, okay, so let's say you swing the gear down. Awesome. You swung the gear down, you're on downwind, and you go out, you look, right? You see in the mirrors or whatever you've got on the wings, and you see your gear looks down. But then you look down and see the light has not come on. What might this indicate? Or I guess let me rephrase that. What would you do in this scenario?
Well, I would try to retract the gears back up and retract them back down, to see if I do get that green light that the gears are down. If not, I'd probably manually pump just to see if I can get it to lock in the down position. I would also, I would pull the little breaker on the gears. I'm trying to remember if there is a little breaker for that where I can pull it and reset it and just see if that fixes the situation. But yeah, I'd want to make sure manually that I pump that gear down and it's pretty tight on that manual pump.
Okay, so you swung the gear up, the yellow light came back on. You swung the gear down, the green light didn't come back on. You hit the emergency pump, good 5-10 pumps,
Yeah.
light still isn't on.
Right.
Are we just gonna risk it for the biscuit and land?
I would. I'd want to get on the ground. Yes. That's a great question there. I would just do all my checks and balances and then bring the plane down and land it for sure.
All right. Is that bulb replaceable?
Is that bulb replaceable? I'm sure it is. Yeah.
All right. Do you have a way to test the bulb?
While I'm in the air.
Yeah.
Um.
If you push on the bulb, does it light up?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'd probably be my first step.
So I'd push on
That's
that.
step one. Just check the bulb. I forget what it was. It was like a 707 or something over the Everglades in Florida. Did you hear about that one? They had the autopilot engaged, or they swung the gear down. One of the lights didn't pop on.
Okay.
So they went over the Everglades and just got into a holding pattern. And they engaged the autopilot in a weird way that meant that if you bumped the stick in some way or another, it would kind of hold the last pilot input. So as they were trying to figure out why the hell their gear wasn't coming down, the captain in his big old belly bumped the yoke and established like an 80 foot per minute descent. So not enough for them to really feel it.
Right.
And they just held that holding pattern until they hit the ground, because they were sitting here trying to figure out why their gear wasn't coming down. And all they needed to do was check the bulb. The bulb had burnt out.
Right.
That was
Okay.
it. That was the only problem. It was a burnt out bulb. And all they had to do was push on it and realize that the light wasn't coming on. And they could literally just swap it for a functioning bulb.
Perfect. Here it is. 2 position indicator lights show that the gear is either up or down and locked. The lights are the press to test type.
Yep. So if I swing my gear and I don't see them indicate in the position I just swung them to, test the bulb.
Yeah.
That is step one. Don't even bother with anything else. Just test the bulb. Does the bulb work? If the bulb doesn't work, it doesn't matter how many times I swing that handle, it's not going to indicate anything.
Right. Right.
All right. Like we went through all the other steps, but let's say something, let's say our lock broke or something like that. You know, something else is mechanically wrong. None of the other stuff I did is going to fix that problem. None of the
Correct.
other stuff that you said we're going to do is going to fix that problem.
Right.
Right. But step one, if my gear indicator does not indicate appropriately, test the bulb.
Yeah. Just hit
If the bulb functions, then I've got other problems. If it doesn't function, do you know how to swap it out?
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
no, that was a question. Do you know how to change that bulb?
Oh yeah, that'd be simple. I'd figure that out real quick. But
Okay.
I don't carry a spare bulb with me either. I do when I pre-flight the plane. I do test the light. That's part of the checklist item. Is the light and the gear horn.
Yeah. And that's completely normal. And I mean, here's the thing. The only reason I'm harping on this one so much is because I just took off the other day in my airplane. Gear indicator worked on the ground. Halfway there, I swung or not halfway. I got into the pattern and swung my gear down and the light didn't come on. And I'm like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
And all it was the bulb.
Right.
Very often the bulb for your uplock indication is the exact same bulb for your downlock indication.
So just swap them out.
Just swap the bulbs.
Right.
Right.
It probably just unscrews out and poof, pop it in there. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you're nervous about, testing that, or, if you're nervous and, you don't want to fuck something up, go talk to your mechanic. Be like, hey, I want to make sure I know how to handle this in flight. So in the
Right.
event that my gear light doesn't come down, do you mind just showing me like, hey, how do I actually swap this bulb?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a great point. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just looking
Now,
at pictures.
go ahead.
Yeah. I was just looking at my pictures. Yeah. Yeah. It's old school with the gear lights. Yeah. Okay.
So let's say one of those switches have failed. Will you get a positive gear indication? We'll even show the viewers what we're talking about. So this is the POH, right? This is the gear. Right, we're on the same page, roughly. I just went and Googled a Cessna 210.
It's interesting because this is my POH. It's
Okay.
like 50 pages, if that. So I got my electrical system diagram, fuel system diagram.
But it doesn't
And
give you a gear indicator or
No,
gear system?
it doesn't give me the gear system.
Okay.
Everything's all verbal in it about the
Oh.
gears, gear doors.
Well, let's go over this one then, just since I've kind of got it up. Because I mean, they didn't change much in most gear indication systems, especially single light gear indication systems are all the exact same. This is probably a newer thing that your airplane doesn't have. The dual warning system probably doesn't have it. But this is your gear uplock and downlock switches. Okay. You should be able to see these during your pre-flight. Right? You should be able to, especially since your gear doors are gone, you should be able to stick your head up there and actually look and see these little switches.
Yeah, that's one of my pre-flight inspections is to look up there in the bay door area. Yeah, the bay gear area.
Yeah, and these little switches should be near your locks,
Yeah.
right? So let's look at how they're wired together. They're all wired in series. So if I've got power that comes through this line and goes through this switch or through all of these switches right here, if one of these switches have failed, will I get an indication to show me if my gear is up or down?
No, it doesn't look like it.
Yeah, because it'll break the circuit. It won't let the circuit continue.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now let's go on the flip side of it and take a look at the hydraulics. So we talked about the electrics. So if I was to talk about if I was to talk about my gear system in this airplane, I would say that it's electrically controlled, hydraulically actuated. Would you agree?
Okay. Correct. Yeah.
Because when you flip your landing gear switch, you're flipping a switch. You're not
Correct.
controlling a hydraulic valve. So it's
Correct.
electrically controlled. But then what happens is your hydraulic system comes in and does its fun little thing and actuates the gear. Some
Right.
airplanes, like mine, for example, it's hydraulically actuated or it's hydraulically controlled and hydraulically actuated. When I swing my gear handle, I'm actually controlling the valve.
Okay.
My handle is the valve.
That's
But for
nice.
you have a switch.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So you've got a selector valve right here. Do you actually control this valve? Or do you actually have a handle that looks kind of like this?
Nope.
Or is it just a switch?
It's just a switch.
So what about, you said you had an emergency extension pump. Do you have
Correct.
any kind of valve or switch or anything that you actuate when you need to use this pump?
No.
No? Okay.
You can see it's pretty free flowing there.
So let's say when you pull this handle out, when you pull out because I'm trying to think, if you've got an electrical failure, how are you going to actuate this gear? A lot of gear systems, right? If you have an electrical failure, right? Let's say your alternator dies. You're running on your alternator dies, your battery dies. How are you going to get this gear down?
Right. I would, the step I would take is I would put the electrical switch, which is the landing gear, little
This
switch
little switch right here.
down in the down position. And then I would go ahead and pump it with the manual pump to get it down. It
Okay.
takes a while. It takes a little bit of time to do it.
So hydraulic system, see figure 7-8, supplied in the electrically driven hydraulic power jack located behind the control pedestal. The power pack only functions to supply hydraulic power for the operation of the retractable landing gear. This is accomplished by applying hydraulic pressure to the actuator cylinders to extend or retract the gear and operate the down locks. The electrical portion power jack is a protected 35 amp pull type circuit breaker. The hydraulic power jack is turned on by the direction of the actuation selected by the landing gear lever when it's placed either in the up or down position. When the gear is fully extended and locked or retracted, a series of electrical switches will illuminate one of two indicators on the instrument panel showing the gear position. A hydraulic pressure switch will automatically turn off the power pack when the hydraulic pressure reaches a preset value. Is that kind of what yours sounds like?
Yes, it does.
Okay. What it seems like to me is, at least again, based off of this Cessna 210 POH that I'm looking at, is that your landing gear switch and handle are the same thing.
Okay.
That when you throw that switch or when you throw that handle, whatever it happens to be in your airplane, it's a electric switch that tells the power pack to turn on.
Correct. Yeah,
right?
I see that. Yeah.
But it's also moving a valve directing the pressure to either the up or down side of the actuator.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yes. I wish I had that schematic there in the book.
Here,
That'd be nice.
I'll share that. And again, this is a POH I just Googled. What I would dig more into is I would try to figure out exactly what your airplane has. Go talk to your maintenance you know, go talk to your mechanic, because this is the POH I found. It's a 1982. Sure, it's a turboed Centurion Cessna 210,
Yeah,
right? So it is a different model than yours, um, but I wouldn't see that the gear system would be that much different.
I don't think so either.
Um, but again, I've not been in your airplane. But these are the kind of things that you should know,
Right. Oh
right?
yeah.
If I'm looking at a POH that's not accurate, you should be able to correct and be like, oh, no, 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 my airplane's a different model. My airplane has different systems. This is how mine functions.
Yeah. I'm right there with
Okay.
you. Yeah, I want to know more about it for sure.
So if you don't have the diagram, go look at the system, right? Go talk to your mechanic. Your mechanic is gonna have an idea on how this system functions, because they need to make sure that it functions during the annual. How do I know it functions if I don't know how it works?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So most general aviation gear systems are if they are entirely electrically controlled, you're going to have a mechanical valve backup that will either relieve pressure throughout the entire system, right? So that you can swing the gear down, or so that you can pump the gear down, right? If they
Okay.
are entirely electrically controlled. Based on this diagram, it looks like it's electrically and hydraulically controlled
Right.
and hydraulically actuated. So the electrical system controls your power pack and controls your uplock and downlock, while you have a hydraulic lever that directs the flow either to the up or down side of the actuators.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you bring the gear up on the ground?
No, because from what I remember is there's actually uh, a load bearing switch on there that when it's on a load, you cannot bring it up.
Okay. So the weight on wheel switch,
Yeah,
right?
I just didn't know. Yeah, that's what I
Um,
was told early on. I mean, when I first got it by the text, so it's like, okay,
yeah, and that it should, right? It should
yeah,
definitely
it's
have
good.
this. Um, and it seems almost like your electric gear switch also, this is accomplished by applying, yeah, so it almost seems like your electrical portion of the switch is going to control the down locks. So you might be able to apply pressure on the opposite side, on the upside of your gear system, by throwing your handle, but that squat switch should prevent your power pack from applying pressure,
Yes,
and your squat switch should also prevent the down locks from disengaging.
right.
Right,
Yeah,
that's based
yeah,
on what I'm reading on
yeah.
this. All right,
I mean,
awesome.
it's a pretty complicated system there, and I think that's why they got rid of a lot of the. They don't make the 210 anymore because of the gear situation, and then the wing spar AD on the plane too. So I know
Yeah,
there's a lot of them. Yeah.
the 210, they got rid of they got there's a joke going around that, did you know 80% of gear up accidents happen in a 210?
It's crazy. Yeah.
Because they yeah, left, yeah, nose gear actuator down, they definitely do have a weird gear actuation system. Um and the fact that the wings like to not stay attached, given that they don't have a strut. They look incomplete. Like when you look at a Cessna, you expect to see struts on it.
Correct. Yeah. But that wing spar, if you look at that wing spar, it's pretty heavy duty, and you inspect it annually on your annual, looking for corrosion because they said a lot of them would get water down in there and corrode the wing spar. But they don't make them anymore, so if that's a problem, they just scrap them.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
you could. uh, I'm assuming you could. I mean, is it? It does the AD straight up say like any level of corrosion to scrap the plane? It's not even a matter of repair it.
yeah, because you can't find those wing spars anymore.
Well, you can make them.
You can make them, but yeah, it would get,
Yeah.
you know,
Cost prohibitive.
right. But it is a great plane. I mean, I really enjoyed flying it. I mean,
Yeah.
um, but it's, you know, in maneuvers, commercial maneuvers, you know, I'll do the maneuvers with the CFI and then I'll ask the CFI to do the maneuver. And
Mm.
usually they're like, oh, the nose is really heavy on this, you know, and they're just like, this is crazy. The sync rate, you know, the 180 accuracy landing with it, you got to be spot on, you know.
Yeah.
So, um, you know, one of my CFIs said I can borrow his 172 for my commercial. And I said, no, this is a 210. This is the plane I'm going to be flying. I want to be able to fly this plane perfectly and do all the maneuvers perfectly too. So,
Yeah, and I mean, I commend you for that because I mean, I see so many people that are like, "Oh, well, I want to go fly X, Y, and Z, but it's easier to take my check ride in A, B, and C or what have you. So I'm gonna go take my check ride in this, and then gonna go risk my life solo in what I actually want to fly." It's like, come on,
right.
like,
You know, it's
why
to
we
me,
gotta?
yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, so I mean, so I really like it. It's a fast plane. It is complex. I learn every day new things about it, especially like today with the hydraulic system and the gear system, the braking system, and you know all those little idiosyncrasies with it. You know, but
Yeah.
and I
Well,
and I wish
let's.
the POH was thicker. You know,
Yeah.
we had more information, and this thing's just like nothing. You know.
Well, what I would recommend, since it is old and it does have that small POH, try and find the maintenance manual for it.
Okay.
Because I mean, my POH is the same problem. My POH is a joke, right? Like there's more documents in my POH from Lycoming than there is from Lake. It's like my Garmin manual for my G5s is thicker than the original POH
You're
for like, and
right.
it's stupid.
Yeah.
So what I did is I found the maintenance manual and I found the illustrated parts catalog. Um, Now, don't get me wrong, I found the illustrated parts catalog and the maintenance manual because, well, I needed to do maintenance on the airplane, but also it helped me learn so much more about the airplane because instead of having to take it apart and look at the actual parts, I
Right.
had a book that showed me the parts, that showed
Sure.
me how it all goes together, that showed, and the maintenance manual even discussed how to verify for proper functioning.
Right. Which is great.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, instead of
Um,
what we say pissing in the wind, you don't want to piss in the wind with it, you know.
exactly. And that's the thing. You look at like a modern POH, and it looks almost like an old school maintenance manual
Yeah.
with how much more is in a modern POH than
Right.
what is, you know.
Yeah.
But then you
Yeah.
look at a modern maintenance manual and it's 6,000 pages. They don't even bother to print them because it would be
Mm.
ridiculous to try and navigate that. So they're all digital.
Yeah.
Um, but let's talk about the prop that's on it. So we said it's a complex aircraft. What really makes this a complex aircraft?
Well, complex aircraft, they say, is flaps, landing gear, and I call it like a variable pitch prop, which is you can adjust the RPMs on that prop. So you have, you know, you're adjusting the prop. So I forget the actual terminology of the prop, but it's variable adjustable pitch prop. So it's got a prop governor on it.
Okay, so there is a difference between a variable pitch prop and a constant speed prop.
Constant speed. That okay.
Yep. They are not interchangeable terms.
Okay.
So a variable pitch prop, when you move that lever, you are moving the pitch of the propeller blade.
Correct.
It does not matter what the engine is doing. You are actuating that propeller blade. I think, I mean, don't quote me on this. I know somebody in the comments is going to rip me apart, but I think the Cessna 195 had a variable pitch prop, meaning when you moved that blue lever in there, you were just changing the pitch of the propeller.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
But with your airplane, it's a constant speed prop. So you brought it up that it does have a governor. Can you kind of work me through or talk me through how that governor works, how that governor is changing the pitch of the propeller?
It's based on the oil pressure. So when you adjust that variable pitch prop on it, um, the pressure of the oil will adjust the governor, and there's a little centrifugal clutch in there, I think, almost like. So it kind of opens and closes to let the oil in and out, depending on your pitch that you have with it. I mean, I haven't dove into it, but
so I have a, let me grab my little, I have a model of
okay.
a prop governor. So let me grab it real quick. All right. So it's not a very good model, but it is a model. All right.
Okay.
So this is a prop governor right here. This is exactly what a prop governor looks like. So right up at the top, you've got your little lever that controls an actual speeder spring. So in here, inside the prop governor, this is kind of what you were talking about with those centrifugal clutch,
Right.
right? These are the flyweights. Okay.
Flyweights. Okay.
So up here at the top, you're going to have your blue lever or your
Right.
blue push and pull knob. And what that's going to do is it's going to actuate this little worm gear. And this little worm gear is going to set tension on a spring that sits on the top of this little bearing right here. Okay. So that tension set on that spring is really what controls how fast your engine can go. Because if I have more tension on this spring, it requires more RPM to get these flyweights to swing out.
Okay.
Okay. So when these flyweights swing out, you can see it's actually controlling a little valve down here. And this little valve down here is what's controlling the oil flow. And that oil flow is what is going to your prop hub that is then controlling the pitch of the blade. And we can open up Microsoft Paint just to make it a little bit, actually, there's actually, I don't need to draw on something because Bold Method actually does a really good job. They have a really good tool. So here we go. So this is a constant speed prop. Okay, so we can see we've got our little blue lever inside the airplane, whether it be a blue lever or your push and pull knob, and that controls this spring that I was talking about.
Nice.
Okay, so when the engine starts to get too fast, the flyweights will
open.
Yeah, so when the airplane starts to get too fast, you can see the flyweights will swing out. It will pick up that pilot valve and allow oil to flow into the hub, pushing it to increases the pitch, slowing the engine down. So let's say that and that would happen, for example, if I am out cruising around and I pitch the airplane down, okay? I pitch the airplane down, the airplane's now flowing through the air easier because it has gravity to help it down. Well, that's going to cause my engine to start to speed up. You remember back from flying your Cessna 172 or something with a fixed pitch prop, if you'd push down and you didn't adjust the power, the RPM would wrap up.
Sure.
Right? Well, this is kind of the same idea. If you're flying around with a constant speed prop, you push down, the RPM starts to wrap up. But then the governor right here, the flyweights swing out, allows oil into the hub, gives you a steeper pitch prop, slowing the blade down. Now,
slowing the RPM down.
Exactly.
The engine yard.
Now, if I pitch, go ahead.
So you don't have an overspeed situation.
Exactly. So you don't overspeed your prop like you could risk in like a constant speed, or that you could risk in a fixed pitch.
Yes.
But then like you've got your underspeed scenario where you start to, let's say, pitch the airplane up without adjusting power or RPM.
Right.
In your old school 172 or 150 or what have you, the engine would just slow down. Right. In this, we're trying to maintain that optimal RPM.
Yep.
So it's going to give you a smaller bite of air, or it's going to give you a shallower pitch on the prop, making it easier for it to run.
Correct.
But as you can see, pushing the prop forward,
Right.
the flyweights, pushing the prop forward gives you higher RPM. Well, it's giving you higher RPM because it's setting a greater tension on that speeder spring, meaning it requires a higher RPM for those flyweights to swing out to neutral, pushing the pilot valve down.
Right. I see.
And then on the same, right?
Right.
Now, why? What's the point? Like, why doesn't every airplane just use a fixed pitch prop? What is this doing for me?
Well, it's helping you manage those situations that you can get in with a fixed blade prop. You know, the overspeeding, underspeeding. I would say it saves your engine, and it also it's more fuel efficient. You know, for fuel economy, efficiency. And I don't know. I'm thinking, you know, and also manifold pressure too. It coincides with manifold pressure too, I would think.
So
if it's a fixed blade, you could ramp up your manifold pressure pretty high if you're running a higher RPM with the plane, you know, in an overspeed situation. I'm just taking a stab in the dark on this one, but that's
okay.
Kind of going through my head on that.
So engines, they generate power at a specific RPM, right?
Correct.
Like they want to live at a specific RPM. You know, on your car, you don't generate its full performance or its full horsepower at idle, right? You have to give it some RPM before it gets to its really, you know, its power band.
Right.
That's what we're trying to accomplish with a constant speed prop, is just keeping the engine in its power band where it wants to live, where it wants to have its best performance. Or we keep it at a lower RPM so we can have a better fuel economy.
Right. I see now.
Yeah. So with a variable pitch, I just want to make sure we kind of circle back to the mistake on the nomenclature, right? So a fixed pitch propeller, right? We recognize it's a solid piece of aluminum, steel, wood, whatever it happens to be, carbon fiber. We cannot change the pitch of that, right? Then we have ground adjustable propellers, which are exactly what they sound like. You can adjust the pitch of the blade on the ground, all right? A lot of Rotex powered airplanes, a lot of experimentals. I think, I don't know if you know Trent Palmer, his Kit Fox that he used to had a ground adjustable propeller. I think his Carbon Cub now has a ground adjustable propeller. Actually, I lie. His Carbon Cub has a constant speed. But either way, you make the adjustments on the ground. Then we have a variable pitch propeller where it really just means you can make the adjustments in the air. But it behaves as you could think of it as once you set the propeller at its pitch, it now behaves as a fixed pitch propeller just at that new pitch that you have set. So you still run the risk of overspeeding. You still run the risk of, you know, stalling out your engine because you've put it at too high of a gear, right?
Yes.
A constant speed propeller, though, has a governor, and, you know, it goes through that whole rigmarole as we, you know, it goes through that whole thing that we talked about, right?
Right, exactly. Whether you're pitching down or pitching up, it'll adjust. It'll maintain that same RPM.
Yep. You could even say that variable pitch propellers could even be called controllable pitch propellers, is another term they might be referred to as. But they are not constant speed propellers. Your airplane has a constant speed propeller.
Correct. Yeah.
All right. So
and that makes it complex too. The complex is the gears, constant speed propeller, and the flaps. Not the flaps.
Mhm.
Yeah, flaps. Yeah.
Now, does what's going to happen to your propeller blade if, let's say, the engine dies? Is it going to go to a high RPM, low RPM, high pitch, low pitch?
I would say, well, oil pressure is going to drop. So it's going to go to a high RPM. Which
Awesome. Awesome.
which would be a low pitch. Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Low pitch. Yeah.
Awesome. There's a little spring in there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now let's talk about your flaps. How do those work?
They're electric flaps.
No, they're electric flaps. There's not really anything else going on there.
Yeah. I mean, and I manually set them to the 10 degrees, 20 degrees, full flaps.
Yeah. Awesome. Now let's talk about the maneuvers that you do as a commercial pilot. Because everyone, they go from the instrument training and they're like, okay, I can identify the purpose of this maneuver. I can identify the purpose of doing an ILS. I can identify the purpose of understanding VORs. Right. But then we get to commercial and we start doing these weird fuck all maneuvers, pardon my French.
Yeah.
And a lot of students are like, why am I doing this? This doesn't make any sense. So let's talk about chandelles. What's the point of a chandelle? What are we trying to simulate? What are we trying to experience?
Well, I've heard I looked at it as a box canyon maneuver.
Okay. So can you kind of elaborate on that?
Well, if you're in a situation where you take off, like in the mountains, high density altitude, and your climb, you can't get your climb rate up, and you're in a box canyon. The chandelle is used to get out of that situation, which basically is you roll into your 30 degrees, you pitch up, and you're adding you got your power. I add about 24 inches of power, manifold pressure at 2400 RPMs, and you're just nosing it around high angle of attack. So that way a 180 turn so you can get out of that box canyon.
Okay, so what's happening in that first half of that chandelle? What are you doing?
What am I doing? I'm the first half of the chandelle is rolling into that 30-degree bank and pitching up.
Okay.
And you have to almost up to you're basically just above the stall.
Okay.
Maneuver. Yeah, so I'm right at 70 indicated.
Okay, so we're slowing the airplane down. What happens to our turn radius as we slow the airplane down?
Our turn radius decreases.
Turn radius decreases, right? So it's going to give us our maximum climb and our maximum or our minimum turn radius.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. Now, what about lazy eights? Talk to me about lazy eights.
That's an interesting one, yeah. Lazy eights. I mean, I have never, nobody's ever explained to me what that maneuver is about. The lazy eight is it's almost you're letting the plane do the maneuver itself. So you're pitching and then banking, and you're holding it at maneuvering speed. So at 2400 RPMs and 20.5 inches of manifold pressure gives me 110 knots indicated. So I stay at that maneuvering speed and I let the plane pretty much fly that maneuver. Because as you're pitching up, it's slowing down, and then it wants to seek that airspeed again, and that nose will drop, and it starts cutting through the horizon. And then as it gets to that airspeed and past the airspeed, it wants to seek that airspeed that you set it at 110, so it'll come right back up out of that maneuver. But with the Cessna 210, it's got a very heavy nose, so you got to manage it pretty closely for sure. And it's a lot of rudder work. Yeah, a lot of rudder work.
And that's really what the maneuver is let's figure out how to be smooth on the controls.
Right.
So let's think back to private pilot, right? When you did your first set of steep turns, were they smooth?
They're terrible.
Even by the time you finished private pilot, they still might be a little abrupt.
Right.
Right? Like if you put grandma in the back seat of your steep turns, it might be a little rough.
Right. Definitely.
Right? But now that we've practiced lazy eights, we're a little bit smoother on the controls. Maybe our coordination's gotten a little bit better.
Yeah.
That's really all we're doing.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out how to maintain coordination through pitch, through bank, and being smooth on the controls.
Yeah.
That's the whole point there.
Steep turns, Steep turns are really on the 210 are really tricky.
Okay, so tell me why. What's going on?
Because once you get past 30-degree angle of bank, that nose drops quickly. So you gotta be on your game for that.
Oh,
Yeah, I entered the steep turn at my maneuvering speed of 110, and then once I roll into that, you know, basically you got to be above 45-degree angle of bank. But once you get to 30 degrees angle, that nose wants to come down. I add a little bit of power up to about 23.5 inches of manifold pressure. And then I'm pulling back to keep that nose from dropping.
okay.
And
So talk to me about the aerodynamics at play. What's causing that nose to drop?
Well, when you're rolling into that 30-degree bank, your higher wing has more airspeed than your lower wing does, so that brings that nose down considerably.
Okay,
That's the way.
so now what you're referring to there is overbanking tendency, right?
Over. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what's going to cause the airplane to want to continue to roll over on you,
Sure.
right? You've got this
Mhm.
one that's like, oh, I get past 30 degrees, that outside wing gets a little faster, it
Yeah.
wants to give me more lift and roll me over. Well, what's
Sure.
really causing that nose to want to drop out of it?
I'd have to I'd have to really think about that one.
Let's think about our lift vectors, right? So when we're in straight and level flight, where's our lift?
Our lift vector is
Right? So we've got our airplane, we've got
yeah,
our wing, straight and level flight, lift's going up.
lift vector's up, and then your weight's straight down. Yeah.
Exactly. So since we've got such a heavier airplane now that we're not, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that we're not used to, it's your airplane. I hope you're used to flying your
Yeah.
airplane.
I'm getting really
Uh,
yeah.
when we get over to that, 45 degrees of bank, I've now got my lift vector up here
Yeah.
and out here, but my weight is still all down there. So since I've
Correct.
got such a smaller lift vector than I do have counteracting my weight, that nose really wants to drop out of it. It's really just
Okay.
the fact that your airplane's heavier than what you've flown before,
Correct.
172 Cherokee 140 or something like that. And it's a matter of CG placement, right? Because in your Cessna 210, where's the CG relative to, when it's just you and your instructor? It's fairly far forward, isn't it?
Correct. It's right, just at our knees, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. So since it's so far forward, we can even look at this airplane from a side profile, right? Let's zoom out and give me some more art space to work with.
Mhm.
So we've got our airplane. All right, here's our tail. Here's our wing. All right, here's our elevator, propeller. We got our center of lift like right about here.
Correct.
All right. And then let's say you're 172, your center of gravity was probably like just right barely there, just right barely in front of your center of lift,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
Well, here in your Cessna 210, since you've got now this big old 6-cylinder 540 up here hanging off the nose, right? Because it's a 540, isn't it?
It's a 520.
Okay, either way, big old 6-cylinder.
The big 6-cylinder fuel injected. They even put the battery right up against the firewall too. So it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, for the 182, the battery was in the back of the plane,
Yeah.
or aft. So,
But I mean, now you've got your CG, like let's say right up there, right about at your knees, as opposed to at your butt, or as opposed to like right behind the seat. So it's farther away from that center of lift.
correct. Yeah.
Now, with my CG being so far forward and so much farther forward of my center of lift, what might this do to my cruise speed?
Your cruise speed, it's going to decrease your cruise speed
Now, why is it decreasing my cruise speed?
because you got to hold the nose up on the
Okay,
plane.
so I've got to hold the nose up. That means my tail's got to work harder, right?
Yeah.
So my
when you get
tail
cruise-
has to generate more downforce. When my
Yeah.
tail generates more downforce, what else does it generate?
more drag.
More drag, right? But the other component of this is the separation between the center of lift and the center of gravity, right?
All right.
So if I've got a center of lift that's, just barely away from my center of gravity, we can look at this distance as almost like a lever that my center of gravity is applying to my center of lift.
Okay.
Okay, so since I've got a short lever here, my center of gravity isn't really applying that much of a moment,
Right.
right?
The
Let's say that this is 10 units of arm
Right.
for 10 units of weight. I now have 100 units of moment being applied to my center of lift.
Right.
Now let's say this 100 units of moment right here that we've got, and say it's still the same 10 units of weight. I now have 1,000 units of moment weight
Right.
being applied to my center of lift.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So since I've got a much greater moment being applied to my center of lift, my center of lift needs to be greater.
Right.
How do I make a bigger center of lift, or how do I just make more lift?
You got to add more power.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't have to add, I can add more power, which is going to give me more speed.
Oh,
Let's
okay.
say same speed. Let's say 110 knots either way.
How am I going to create more lift? I've got to increase my angle of attack a little bit on it.
And when I increase my angle of attack, what do I increase?
You're going to increase drag, lift and drag.
Exactly. So since I've got more drag to counteract, that's where that whole I need to increase power comes from, right? And it wasn't that, having to increase power is necessarily wrong. It's just we had a couple more steps I wanted to talk about before we got to that
That's great.
inherent.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's so easy to just jump so far ahead, and then all those little pieces in between, that are critical pieces too.
Yeah. Awesome. So so far what I'm really going to say is your route planning wasn't necessarily bad, right? The in the moment planning is fine, right? I'm comfortable that you know how to build a plan and you know how to make an adjustment to a plan that you've been given and be able to describe why, and explain why we made this adjustment instead of like, oh, I don't know, I didn't want to do that, right?
Right.
You had
Right.
okay. You had a solid understanding there. And the lack of systems knowledge might be more attributed to the lack of resources available for your aircraft.
It has been. Even the CFIs are just like, we really don't know where to go with this plane with the maneuvers. So we spent
Yeah.
hours and hours figuring out, what's the maneuvering speed going to be? What's your best glide actual speed should be on a 180, accuracy landing, and also in the engine out procedures and things like that. So it's really helped me gain a lot more knowledge because of that versus just having a 182 book owner's manual and going through it and then just going through it,
Exactly. Well, so I love that you brought up maneuvering speed. Can you describe to me what maneuvering speed is?
Maneuvering speed, from what I remember, or what I know of it, is that you can put in one input and it won't overstress the plane at that speed. But if you do multiple inputs, then it could overstress the plane and basically stall the plane at that, because the wing's gonna stall if you're doing too many inputs at that maneuvering speed. That's kind of how I was referred to it, but
Well, it's not necessarily a matter of too many inputs, right? So if we were to just kind of give like the textbook definition of what maneuvering speed is, if I am at or below maneuvering speed, I can apply one swift full control deflection without risking damage to the aircraft. And if that one swift control happens to be an upwards pitch, the aircraft will stall before damage occurs.
okay.
Okay. It means I can stomp the rudder. It means I can crank the aileron. It means I can pitch up. It means I can pitch down. But it's only the one.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So your maneuvering speed probably changes with weight, doesn't it?
Yes, it
Most
does.
maneuvering speeds change with weight. Can you kind of
Correct.
explain why?
Um, I'm just trying to think through that in my head. Yeah, it does definitely change with weight. It actually goes up with weight, maneuvering speed. I would say because of your ratios between what you have to maintain as far as airspeed to be able for the airplane to be able to fly in stable flight at that speed.
So does maneuvering speed have anything to do with stability?
No, I wouldn't think so. No.
No. So the I think I see kind of where you were trying to go, but let's talk about how to, maybe flesh out the answer a little bit more.
Okay.
Okay. So why does maneuvering speed go up with weight? Well, it goes up with weight, a real quick, dirty way to say it is like it goes up with weight because it's easier to move a feather than it is a rock. Okay. So I know you're like, wait, what the hell? That doesn't make any sense. Why are we talking about feathers and rocks when we should be talking about
But I
airplanes?
understand. Yeah. Because of load.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's how much load can the aircraft absorb. Okay. So let's use, for example, I'm at 100 knots at minimum weight. If I crank back on this elevator as hard as I can, all the way to full deflection, okay, my
Right.
separation between my current lift and my available lift is pretty great. Let's say it's 800 pounds. I'm currently generating 2,000 pounds of lift to maintain level flight. And at this angle of attack, I have 800 pounds more of lift that I can apply to this airplane, meaning I can apply 800 pounds of force to that wing. Can
Okay.
that wing absorb that 800 pounds?
Right.
Well, that's what maneuvering speed really says, right? But let's move my airspeed down. Let's slow this airplane from 100 knots to, let's say, 90 knots. Now at this speed, I have to have a greater angle of attack. So I'm
Right.
still generating the 2,000 pounds of lift, but since I'm already at a higher angle of attack, I can only apply 500 pounds of force.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Now let's say I'm at a heavier weight. Let's say I'm at 2,800 pounds, but my
Right.
wing, no matter what angle of attack it's at, can only generate 2,800 pounds of lift. I only have 200 pounds of force I can apply to that wing,
Right.
no matter what airspeed I'm at. So let's say again, I'm at 100 knots, and my current lift is 2,600 pounds, but my maximum available lift is 2,800 pounds. I can only apply 200 pounds of force to that wing.
Right.
That's why maneuvering speed goes up with weight, right? Because let's say I push that airplane up to, let's say I push that airplane speed up to, let's say, for example, 110, right? I'm still generating 2,600 pounds of 2,600 pounds of lift. I'm just at a lower angle of attack. My critical angle of attack still only gives me 2,800 pounds of lift.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And you could think of that same idea as it applies to the ailerons, as it applies to the rudder. At lower speeds, I have less force to apply, or at lower speeds, I have less air going over those control
Less effective
surfaces.
rudder control surface controls. Yeah.
Yeah. I have less air moving over those control surfaces, meaning I have less for that control surface to push against, meaning it can only generate so much force.
Right.
Right. And if it's trying to move a big item, if it's trying to accelerate a big item in a direction, it's going to apply, it can't apply as much acceleration to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, the other one you brought up was glide speed. Where does your best glide actually happen in a propeller-driven airplane?
My best glide actually happened.
Yeah, how do I, if I was to look at like a power to lift to drag ratio chart, where would my best glide speed happen?
Where? Oh gosh, it's been a long time since I looked at that. My best glide ratio is going to be. I'm just trying to think of the picture.
Well, when is a wing most efficient?
When it's
The
when
most
it's
amount
I'm sorry.
the most amount of lift for the least amount of drag.
Right.
So my LD max,
Right. LD max.
right?
Yeah.
And so I know the power off 180, they say, oh, it needs to be done at, best glide speed and all this jazz. Um, does your POH identify a best glide speed? I mean, it should. I really hope it
It
does.
does. It does. Um, let me get to it. I'll share that with you.
Yeah.
Just looking for the okay. Best glide speed. 3,800 pounds, 95 mile an hour indicated, 3,400 pounds, 90, and 3,085.
Okay, so it's giving you a range for your best
Yeah.
glide.
Which is, 83 knots for 3,800 pounds, 78 knots for 3,400 pounds, and at 3,000 pounds, it's 74 indicated, knots indicated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'm fine. Just need to. What I would definitely dig into, I would definitely try and go back and read through the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge on just aerodynamics, right? Understanding how a wing generates lift, understanding where it's most efficient, least efficient, and why your airplane behaves the way that it does in these maneuvers. All right. The Airplane Flying Handbook is also going to be a good reference to go and dig back into because it's going to go over these maneuvers.
Yes.
It's going to explain the aerodynamics that are at play in a lot of these maneuvers. When I say solid aeronautical decision making when it comes to plan, when it comes to moving an airplane from point A to point B, and that's really where we want to see at the commercial level. And I know it feels weird because we know you're not going, like you've said multiple times, like, oh, I'm just doing this to try and be a better pilot, right?
Yeah.
But to pass the commercial check ride, there is the expectation to have this kind of knowledge on how these airplanes work, on the systems associated with your airplane. Solid pilot knowledge. Like I would, say perfect where you're at with your experience when it comes to private pilot and even instrument. But when it comes to commercial, we got to have a really solid understanding of how our aircraft systems function, especially when it comes to the landing gear, especially when it comes to the prop. Flaps, I mean, your airplane is pretty simple. Like it's not really a whole lot going on there.
No.
But if you were flying something a little bit more complex, flying something with speed brakes, we'd want to know how do those speed brakes work? Why do we have speed brakes versus spoilers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So I would definitely dig through the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge some more, and the Airplane Flying Handbook, and go over just the kind of the stuff that was maybe glossed over as a private pilot, going like, oh, that's way too in depth for a private pilot. Well, we're at the commercial level.
Right.
Once we start getting to ATP and stuff like that, it gets a little bit more complex, and there you start getting into multi-engine limits and speeds and
Right.
and then there's a lot of focus put on the actual aircraft that you're flying, because most people get their ATP along with a jet type rating.
Right.
All right. So this is kind of the end when it comes to high level knowledge. So if it's in the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge, it's fair game.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
So flying, planning, great. We just need to go back and crack open the books some more.
Okay.
All
Yeah.
Right? Any questions that like we're kind of burning to ask? Any material that you're like, hey, I don't really understand this. Can we dig into this some more?
I mean, it's all the common carriage and private carriage and
I mean,
all that. It's just like my CFI basically says and someone wants to pay you to fly them or the cargo, their cargo, or you're getting into an area where you really need to take a look at before you say yes or no, depending on it. But if you're going to be working for somebody that has their own plane, and um, you need to know to ask the right questions there, is do you have the right certifications for me to do this for you? You know,
Yeah.
my CFI is like, when they ask that question, you tell them, I just need to have an attorney, and have an attorney drive into it and look at it.
All right. That's a bullshit cop out answer.
And that's what I was like.
No, that's a bullshit cop out answer, because it's not that complicated. I know the regs, they suck. They're written by a lawyer.
They're
Break it
terrible.
down real simple. If you are transporting people or cargo from point A to point B for compensation, you need an operator certificate. If you are the pilot and the plane, and you are providing point A, point B, people or property, operator certificate. Okay?
If I
Now,
say that one more time, I'm sorry.
If you are providing the pilot and the plane to transport people or property from point A to point B, you need an operator certificate.
Yes. Okay.
Okay? We are not talking about private carriage, common carriage, holding out, anything like that. If you're moving shit, whether it be squishy bodies or boxes from point A to point B, and they were able to just buy a singular ticket, they didn't have to go find a pilot and an airplane. They came to you and said, I want to move these things from here to here via aircraft, operator certificate.
Right.
Okay. So that is the easiest way to answer the can you do this flight question.
Right.
Because here's the thing. As an individual, if you're not starting a company, if you're not trying to offer flights from point A to point B, whether it be cargo or what have you, why does it fucking matter if it's common carriage, private carriage, holding out 135, 121? It doesn't.
Right.
Is there a task where I am being compensated to move something from point A to point B, where the pilot and the plane are both being provided?
Right.
If the answer to that is yes, we are done. I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if we want to dig deeper, sure we can. If the plane and the pilot are not available to the public, it's private carriage.
It's private carriage.
Can I book a flight on Taylor Swift's jet? No. It's private carriage. All right. Now, is it available to the public? If so, then we're wondering, is it scheduled or is it not? If it's scheduled, it's 121. It's an airliner. If it's not, it's 135. It's a charter.
Okay. Right.
But here's the thing, at the top of all of it, are we moving somebody or something from point A to point B, and I am getting paid for it, and I am providing the airplane? If the answer to that question is yes, you cannot do it.
Yeah. Or
because here's
an op certificate for that. Yeah.
Yeah, and here's the thing. The application for an operator certificate is $50,000.
Yeah, it's like
just the application.
Yeah, like a liquor license.
And that's the thing, is that if the DPE wants to dig any deeper, you just be like, to be honest, I'm going to have to look into it. But what I do know is the application is $50,000, and that's why I didn't look into it, because I'm not paying that.
Right.
Right. A commercial certificate, we're not trying to dig in on whether or not you know how to start an airline.
Right.
What we're trying to make sure is that you know how to keep yourself out of the NTSB's or the NTSB of the FAA's crosshairs.
Yeah, most wanted.
Exactly. So let's use an example. I come up to you and say, hey, can you take me from point A to point B with your 210? I'll give you $100. Is this legal?
No.
No. All right, done. Let's move on.
Yeah. It doesn't. Even if you offered me, I'll take you to dinner. No.
Yeah. Exactly. Hey, if you take me from point A to point B in your 210, and I think you do a good job, I'll give you a job flying my Cessna 337. Is this legal? is there
I'd
the
I'd have to say, yes, it's legal because he's not paying me to fly him in my 210, but he's given me an opportunity to,
it's compensation? The option or the proposition that you are going to gain something
I,
from this transportation of point A to point B. Remember, the FAA
no,
does not view money as the only form of
no,
compensation.
that's true.
And I know there's a couple jokes you could probably put in here that are inappropriate for most
Right,
family outings.
right.
But the FAA views any gain as compensation,
Any gain. Okay, that's a great way of putting it.
right?
And
So,
yeah,
and the promise of a job is gain,
right,
right?
right.
Now, if I provide the airplane, let's say I own a Honda jet, right? And I say, hey, you sit right seat in it, because let's say I own a Honda jet and I'm an instructor too. Fucking, I don't. It's a little ridiculous example, but I say, hey, come with me, sit right seat in this Honda jet that I own. And if you do a good job on the landing, maybe we could talk about a job. Is this legal?
Um, I would say no, because it goes back to there's a gain there.
Did you provide the plane?
No, I did not provide a plane.
All right. I own the plane. It's Part 91.
Okay, okay.
So I'm only hiring you as a pilot. Can you provide transportation from point A to point B to somebody who owns an airplane and then pay you as a pilot?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I own a Honda jet. I want you to sit right seat. And if you do a good job sitting right seat, I'll offer you a job. Is this a legal flight?
I figure it's legal, yeah, because it's a Part 91.
Yeah, it's a Part 91,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Um, so you you see how we're applying these kind of rules, right?
Yeah, yeah, I do. Yeah,
Right? Because remember that first rule, are you providing the pilot and the plane?
right.
If somebody else is providing the plane and you're only the pilot and they aren't selling tickets to somebody else, right?
Holding it, selling tickets. Yeah.
So let's put this into a different example. Let's say um, the same example, right? The Honda Jet thing, but I sold 2 tickets for $35 to sit in the back. Is this flight legal still?
No.
No, because now we're providing transportation from point A to point B for compensation,
Right. And
right?
so it'd be
You're
like
not,
common carriage.
yeah, well, depending on who bought the tickets, right? If it was a public thing, like I put up a flyer, Facebook ad,
That's
something like
holding
that,
it.
common carriage, right? But if it was just like a charter, right? If some rich person was like, "Oh, I want to buy the ticket on, the Honda Jet or whatever." Okay. Um, the last one that gets some people in trouble. Congratulations, you've got a commercial pilot certificate. Can you offer tours without any other work? Can you offer aerial tours?
Uh, you can, but you also have to have a certificate for that too, right? Go to the FSDO office and get a certificate, but it's only a 25-mile radius around where your airfield is, where you take off.
Yeah, and here's the thing: it's not a certificate; it's a letter of authorization.
Letter of authorization.
Yeah, it's an LOA, not a certificate, right? So if I go and buy 5 airplanes and want to start a flight school, I need an LOA, right? From my local FSDO. But an operator certificate and an LOA, they're different things. LOAs usually fall under Part 91, unless there's a deviation from the rules of Part 121 or 135 or 119, then they would fall under those specific regs. But most LOAs or letters of authorization are going to be a Part 91 letter of authorization. And that's what the Air Tours one is. I think it's, I'd have to look it up. It might be like 91, 119 or 117 or something
Yeah,
like that. I forget exactly what it is, but all right. So right off the top, somebody is trying to pay you with your airplane to move something or somebody from point A to point B. Operator certificate.
Yeah, we can't do it.
Okay.
Get an operator.
To put up, if you were to put up to the public that you are offering point A to point B at noon every day, what would this be?
Holding out.
That would be holding out, but what type of certificate would it fall under?
It would be an operator's certificate, common
An oper-
carriage.
so let's.
Okay. It's an
Hey,
operator.
yeah, we need an operator certificate. What part would it fall under? Moving people point A to point B at a specific time every day.
There'd be part 121.
It'd be a 121 operator certificate. Can you give me an example of a 121 operator certificate? Like who would own one?
Airlines.
Yep, airlines. Awesome. Now let's say I put up a flyer that says, hey, I'm offering flights from point A to point B, but we're only going to leave once I get a full airplane. What would this be?
That sounds like a charter to me.
It does sound like a charter because there's no specific time, right?
So it's like it's 135.
It's 135. Now, is it private or common carriage?
It's my aircraft.
It's your airplane. You put up a flyer at the airport saying, once I get enough people, we're going to leave.
I would say it's common carriage because you're holding out.
Yeah, it's common carriage because I'm holding out and it's available to the public, right?
And it's available to the public, yeah.
Awesome. So you do understand it.
I'm getting there, but I'm not, it's just so, there's so many little moving pieces there, but like you said, let's boil it down, make it simple, if you're carrying people or cargo from point A to point B, you need an operator certificate.
And that's the thing. If they want to dig any deeper, just like at that point, I'd be starting a company and I would hire an attorney.
Yeah. That's what I think my CFI goes to is like, if you're going to do this, because he's done this before, he said, it's just so much paperwork.
Yeah. And it's like, you don't want to, like, that's why most places, what they do is most new companies that start, they hop on someone else's certificate. Right. So let's say I want to start operating flights in a widgeon, right? I want to start off, or even bigger, an albatross. Fuck it. Let's go for the big one. Right. 75 seats. I'm going to start offering seaplanes from, Sheboygan, Wisconsin to somewhere over in Michigan, right? Somewhere on the shore, Traverse City. I don't know. But instead of me trying to convince the FAA that it's a good idea for me to go buy an albatross and stick 75 people in that damn airplane from the 1930s, I'm going to instead go hit up Air Wisconsin and say, hey, I'll give you 20% of my profit, or I'll give you 20% of my revenue if you get me on your certificate as a operator with a new, or as pretty much effectively with a new airplane. So then I can now operate as a 121 carrier under their certificate while I develop all of my procedures that need to be in place, while I go and hire a director of maintenance so that I can then branch out and already have all of my paperwork, already have all of my ducks in a row. And I just apply to the FAA saying, hey, look, I've been doing this under Air Wisconsin's 121 certificate for 5 years now. I want to branch off on my own. These are all the things I've already established. Here's my 50 grand.
Right. Yeah.
That's how a lot of newer places do it.
Yeah, I believe it. Or they buy
a failing airline.
Yeah.
There was some guy on YouTube. It was actually pretty funny. He bought a failing airline up in like Alaska, just so that he could be like, I was the CEO of an airline for one day. And it's like, come on, like, this is fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Oh
gosh.
But at the commercial pilot level, the regs really, what we want to do is make sure that you're not going to end up in trouble with the NTSB or the FAA. And that if you do end up in front of the NTSB or the FAA, you could talk about it intelligently. Because like aviation lawyers, they're kind of far and few between.
Sure, I'm sure.
Believe me, I went looking for one with my whole medical fiasco, and they're Ramos Law. They're great. That's the only one I know of.
Right.
So they want to make sure, like, let's say, for example, that Honda jet scenario that we were talking about earlier, where he sold, the owner of the airplane sold 2 tickets for $35, but then your landing sucked, right? And you ended up balled up at the end of the runway, but everyone survived. But you still got to go talk to the NTSB.
Sure.
The NTSB is going to ask, well, did you know that he sold tickets? Well, how are you going to respond to that?
Well, I mean, I'd have to say, no, I didn't know he sold tickets. And they would say, well, why didn't you ask those questions?
Because I wasn't pilot in command, because I was sitting right seat.
Yeah, that wasn't PIC. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't. I was there for what I thought was an interview opportunity.
Right.
Right.
And I wouldn't, I mean, I don't know.
Well, of course, like you're not going to end up in that scenario.
I'd probably knock the guy out and land the plane.
Yeah. But obviously, like there's obviously you're not going to end up in that situation, right? It's these weird examples, and so remember, if we're moving people or boxes from point A to point B, providing the airplane and the pilot, you need an operator certificate. If I am hired by a company that is moving things from point A to point B on a schedule, they better have a 121 operator certificate. If it's not scheduled, they better have a 135 operator certificate.
Yeah.
Now, is this airplane available to the public? Then it's common carriage.
Yeah, common carriage, yeah.
If it's not, it's private carriage. See how that's a much simpler way to break it down than the 20 pages of legalese that's written in the FAR AIM?
Right.
Okay. To be honest, I think after this, I'm going to sit down and write out a flow chart.
Yeah, I've got like a number of flow charts, but they're just, and I think I've showed you one of those once before, and you're like, where did you find that thing?
Yeah.
On YouTube, but, they're like arrows going everywhere, and you're just like, what the heck?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, nobody is asking you to open up an airline with a commercial certificate. They're asking if you were offered a job, can you discern if it's legal?
A couple of them that I have found. Let me pull it up for you so you can see it.
Oh yeah, that's yeah. I think I remember that one. Yeah.
Yep. And then you've got this one here. I think you sent this to me.
Oh yeah, I might have found one on like YouTube or Google or something like that.
So yes, a flow chart would be awesome if you could do something like that.
Yeah. All right. I'll see what I can come up with. Because I mean, it doesn't. I know it's a lot. So many other people try to make it so much more complicated. But just remember, point A to point B, they need an operator certificate. If you are providing the airplane and the pilot, congratulations, you need to be the one with the operator certificate.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Real simple.
But if you are just being hired as a pilot to fly an airplane from point A to point B, and the owner of the airplane is not selling tickets, whether it be to the public or private,
I can do it.
they can pay you all day.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. The promise of future compensation, whether it be through a job opportunity or getting paid eventually, is still viewed as compensation.
Right.
Okay. Anything else?
I think that's about it.
Awesome. Is that what is it? A Cessna 310? How's that thing coming along?
340. It's coming along. Sarasota Avionics is finished with it. I'm not able to fly the plane yet, because I'm not multi-engine commercial or anything like that. But it's complete. It's finished. I'm just waiting on a friend of mine. He said sometimes he has a deadhead back from Florida, so he'll just fly it back. He's very knowledgeable about the plane. It was actually his plane when I bought it off him. And he knows the avionics, so he's going to go through all the avionics with Sarasota Avionics. And then once we're going to get it back to our home base. got to do the annual, which is due in October, and then I take it to RAM.
Oh,
To get
and Ram is going to do the big old turbochargers on it, right?
yeah, and a big turbocharger intercooler on it, 335 horse, I think, in
Yeah.
its side. Um, I'm looking forward to that training, but right now I'm just so focused on the commercial piece, and it's just really hard to find DPEs out there. I mean, everybody's
Yeah.
3-4 months out.
Yeah. I mean, if you're willing to fly up here, I know Shane, he's got time.
Yeah, I mean, it's down here. It's like, I mean, my check ride is December 9th.
God. Yeah, sorry. I applied to the FAA to be a DPE, no response. So
I don't get that. I mean, from what I hear, some people say they're just trying to scale it down to be more manageable. Um,
well, what happened is they cut the amount of DPEs an ASI can oversee in half.
that's what it was. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. So like ASIs used to be able, or aviation safety inspectors used to be able to oversee 10 DPEs. Now they cut it down to 5, right? They don't have enough ASIs to oversee the DPEs they currently have.
I believe it,
And
and yeah.
and I mean, I looked into it, but the idea of a 9 to 5 job just sounds nauseating. Uh,
Yeah, I
like,
mean, like I think I told you that the person that I go to, um, she does like maxes out at 8 a day, 8 check
I mean,
rides a day.
8 check rides in a day is a lot. Like, I don't do more than 4 of these mock check rides. I don't even get on a plane. I don't even
Right.
do more than 4 of these in a day. I
Yeah.
couldn't imagine doing 8 full-blown check rides in one day.
Yeah, and she you got to get a half hour for the oral, and then you're in the plane for like an hour at the most.
That doesn't sound. I guess maybe for the commercial,
I mean, she
but
dives. She's pretty intense. You know,
huh.
I've done check rides where the oral was 3.5 to 4 hours, and the flight portion was like 3 hours.
Yeah. I mean, my instrument check ride, the oral was it came up on 9 hours and they were about to discontinue again for the third time and I said either fail me or we're going flying tomorrow because I'm not doing it another 3 hours of this.
Yeah, it wears on you. I mean, especially
Yeah.
the oral. I mean, depending on how intense it can be, and then they want you to go fly afterwards. You're like totally drained.
Yeah.
You know,
And here's the thing, like I will tell, like I used to say this in a lot of other mock check rides I did, a while ago. It's your check ride.
yeah,
If you want to delay it, delay it.
yeah,
If you're tired, hey, I'm, after 4 hours of chit chatting, I'm a little tired.
yeah,
I don't feel up to flying. I wouldn't fly normally on my own in this condition. So it doesn't make sense for me to try and perform my best in this
right.
condition. So, um,
Yeah,
I,
I understand that. Yeah,
um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I looked into being an ASI, applying as an ASI, but I just, it's the idea of showing up to the office every day to do paperwork or something. Sure, they have like 50% travel where like you're going out and you're inspecting and doing stuff, but it just seems 9 to 5 every day just seems like it would
and
wear on you.
and does it weigh out for you too? I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
they're paying you X dollars, and you can go, okay, yeah, I can do that for that. But a lot of times those higher level areas like that, they're like, I was better off being a DPE.
And that's kind of the problem is like the current an ASI, right? When I looked at it, they did up the pay. Like, don't get me wrong, like 2-3 years ago, it was like 40 grand. And I'm like, of course you're shorthanded. Like nobody's gonna come work for the FAA for 40 grand a year. Like
Right, exactly.
but now it's up to like 120. It's 120 a year to go be an ASI. And I mean it's tempting at 120. It is definitely tempting at 120. Um, but I don't know if my airline ever signs this damn contract. I've been in contract negotiations for 5 years. It wouldn't be worth it anymore. And I would hate to jump ship from my airline to go be an ASI. And then like 2 weeks later, we finally get a contract.
Right. I mean, and yeah, it's almost like a school teacher thing. They're overseeing all these kids and educating them and everything, but they get 35,000 a year. do it.
Yeah, and it's just
That's
like,
terrible,
yeah,
but I mean, and that's just because that's government institute, right? They don't get it. And that's
yeah,
why there's so much. That's why when you see a president that goes into office and you look at what their financial worth is, and it's $1.3 million, and then when they get out of the office, they have made 200 million.
believe me,
Well,
there's a lot. I mean,
where did that 200 million come from? When you're getting paid a quarter million a year to be president, or
yeah, I
three.
mean, don't get me wrong, there's definitely a lot going on behind the scenes.
Yeah,
That's why there's so many bills trying to get passed where people can't. Elected officials shouldn't be able to hold individual stocks. But of course, since they're the ones voting on it, it's not going to pass. It's like, hey,
right,
we're going to try and pass a bill that makes it so that you can't continue to insider trade.
right.
No, why would I say yes on that? You should trust me.
Yeah,
Whatever.
Nancy wouldn't like that.
God.
She
Yeah.
made 400 million now.
Well, and that's the funny thing is one of the bills was actually called the Pelosi bill.
Right.
Like it was an acronym that like made it. It was funny, but of course it didn't pass. Either way.
Yeah.
If anybody watching, right? If you are qualified, that they want flight instructors, they want airline pilots. Go apply to be an aviation safety inspector. It pays decently. You're home every night. Sure, it's a 9 to 5 job. I just do too much stuff. Like I couldn't go to my boss and be like, "Hey, I want to take a week off so I can fly my seaplane around the country." They'd be like, "Yeah, no, we have shit to do. You got paperwork." Like,
Right. Right. You got five
um,
DPEs that you're overseeing. Oh my gosh.
yeah. But if you want to be at home and you don't want to, go and fly around and do all that fun stuff, and you just want a chill government job, I definitely recommend go check out being an ASI. They are hurting for people. Like I went and talked to the FAA at Oshkosh, and we talked about my qualifications. They're like, you need to apply now.
Yeah.
They wanted to, like I was sweaty and nasty, and they wanted to do an interview then. I just didn't have a resume on me. Like they're hurting that much that they were doing in-person interviews at Oshkosh. Like, let's do an interview right now.
Yeah.
So if you're
Was there,
interested,
was there a sign-on bonus?
no, there wasn't any sign-on bonus, but I mean, 120K a year it's not bad,
No, it
you
isn't.
know?
It isn't bad. I mean, it depends on where you live too and where you're going to be stationed out of and things like that. Like if you're in South Florida, 120 grand, it's hard to live on 120 grand in South Florida.
Well, and that's the thing. They offer effectively COLA, like cost of living adjustments.
Okay.
Yeah, like I think for California, the COLA that they offered was like 60 grand.
Wow.
Which, sure, 180 in California is still a little tight. I'm not gonna lie, it's still a little tight.
Yeah. Yeah.
And obviously, don't quote me on these numbers. I'm not a representative of the
Yeah.
FAA or anything like that. For heaven's sakes, I have merch called Friends Against Aviation. So like, I am nowhere near a rep for the FAA. But it in the current hiring market, I could definitely see the value of applying as an ASI.
Yeah.
So, but good luck. Get study, and don't hesitate. Ask any questions you might have in the Discord. All right, man.
Yeah, and I'm going to loop back around with you, and I'll have little brush ups for my
All right.
my check ride and stuff like that. So I'll take a look at your calendar again and lock some dates in.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, Adrian.
Yeah, of course. You enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, man. Bye now.